everyone. My name is Vinu Johnny. I lead the sales, marketing, and customer success functions for the company named Edge Networks, which is an AI powered HR tech firm. And welcome to 15 Minutes on Edge. This is a series of podcasts where we examine anything and everything about talent and the overarching HR landscape. Today, in this series, what we wish to examine is the changing talent paradigms, especially on the heels of the COVID pandemic that we had all gone through. We would look at some of the pressing issues of mass layoffs, frozen hirings. We would look at how it impacts multi-generational workforce. We will also discuss topic that's been very hotly contested, and I think there's a mystery around it, which is moonlighting, diversity and inclusion, and of course, nature and future of the worker and workplace. And to do all of this, I'm extremely delighted to be joined by our esteemed guest, Mr. Navin Patel, who heads global talent acquisition for a phenomenal firm called Affine, which is a pure play AI and analytics firm. Hearty welcome to you, Navin. Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you so much, Vinu. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Navin. Just to give you a quick introduction about Navin, he's a talent acquisition expert and an innovative strategic thinker, defining and implementing new initiatives within the talent acquisition realm. He has over 2 decades of experience in various leadership roles within the talent acquisition domain. Navin's built, coached, and led high-performing large teams. He is also part of many talent community forums and actively engages and contributes as a speaker with his rich experience and thought leadership. So, Navin, let's dive straight in keeping with the theme that we just laid out. Our first question to you is what we seek to understand is what is the talent shift in organizations today, the way you see it, especially post the pandemic and the current situations where we are all faced with hiring freezes, mass layoffs, and all of those?
So I think there's definitely been a big significant shift from peak pandemic, pre-COVID pandemic to post-COVID pandemic. Definitely in terms of the hiring process, earlier we used to have a lot of talent coming into office for interview process. So all that has changed now, right? So we have to enable ourselves to be able to virtually interview, assess people. I think that's gone through a particular change. The interview panels are also working from home. Right? I think that's a huge significant change, but the industry has adapted to that quite well. And we have been leveraging a lot of tools, platforms to enable us with this particular change. So I think that's a good thing to have. And I think the turnaround time has become better. The availability of candidates and interview panels has become better, because when you expect someone to be at office, they have to plan that day, come down to the office, right? So that might increase in the time. So I think that is something which has really changed, and a lot of interviews can be scheduled within a single day. I think that blessing disguise for us, the recruitment team. And with respect to the layoffs and hiring freeze, I think that was bound to happen with the kind of surge that we are seeing in the kind of hiring number, right? So people were hiring large numbers, more than what they had done in maybe 2021, right? And that was supposed to stabilize, and that is what is happening now. And at the same time, there are talks about slight recession happening in the US and Europe market. I think that is to some extent impacting India market, but I think India market is still quite strong with respect to few specific hiring, right? When it comes to technology, I think that hiring is still going on strong in some of the key areas, and I think that will continue to happen, and we will probably see uptick maybe another quarter's time. So right now people are just checking, and because they've done over hiring in the last couple of quarters, right? So I think they are trying to get those people placed into projects, right? To utilize them before they can start hiring again. And obviously people like companies in the startup area and other organizations, they have invested a lot into customer success team, business development teams, right? In anticipation that they will probably be able to get more business. I think those are the areas where people are seeing some amount of layoffs that are happening, and organizations have to survive. They have to look at profitability. They're responsible or answerable to the stakeholders and the shareholders, right? So I think that's the reason why they're trying to see where are the areas where they can cut corners to sustain profitability or showcase some amount of savings. So I think that is something which is temporary phase, which keeps happening once in a while, but sometimes it catches media's attention and people kind of highlight that more publicly than before.
Absolutely, Navin. I think what I'm hearing is it seems to have cut across industries, not necessarily IT or IT services alone, across industry. And I'm glad you touched upon functions of customer success, business development, sales, and not just necessarily IT services or projects and all of those. So it certainly impacted the entire work economy, which is knowledge economy, generally very homogeneous skill sets of customer service and all of those. So Navin, what we wish to seek and understand from you is what are the new skills that you see in demand for the future of work, both tech and non-tech?
So from the tech perspective, definitely it's going to be anything to do around data, because each and everything that that you use across all industries, starting from your mobile phones to a person getting to a store. Everywhere you are tracking data. It's gonna be important. How do you utilize the data? How do you analyze the data? And how do you capture and capture insights from respect to growing a company, growing a sales, right? So that's the reason why it's going to be very, very important. And AI and ML also coming into play across all different platforms, right? Even simple website also has so many data points it captures from time to time. Google also captures your location, your visits to different places, and analyzes the data, and that data becomes as inputs for different organizations. So I think that's going to be very, very key. And a lot of companies are also moving towards cloud, right? So on-premise to moving your data to cloud, and then analyzing and structuring the data, making data visualization also, right? Using different tools and platforms that are available in the market. I think this is going to be very, very key in the market from the IT perspective, and anything which is supporting this, right? There are a lot of technologies that are coming into play right now, right? And even the overall cycle time for a particular technology earlier used to be 4 to 5 years, right? So now every 1 year, with 1.5 year, you're seeing new technology replacing the old one, right? So I think that's going to be key to staying abreast with the latest technologies in the market. So I think that is something which people have to keep upgrading themselves, doing a lot of new certification courses, which is going to help them stay active and in demand in the market. Because that's something that we always constantly face challenges with someone who's probably a potential fit but not really there to get started today. And gone are the days when people used to wait for 60 days, 90 days for a person to join and get deployed or trained and then get deployed. Currently, all the companies and the hiring managers are looking at someone who can start running from day one. I think that's something which we are always constantly fighting to bridge the gap. And from a non-technical aspect, I think they'll have to upgrade themselves, upskill themselves more from a business point of view, right? They cannot really look at their function in silos and see how they are playing a role, but they'll have to look at entire business and figure out how are they plugging in themselves and adding value to the large business, right? Example, a recruiting role, right? They'll not have to just look at what they can do at a sourcing of a candidate and bringing them to the door, right? They'll have to look at the entire spectrum of engaging with the candidate, interview process, which channel, which source are they sourcing the candidate from, how are they going to help in reducing the cost to the organization, how are they looking at the person getting onboarded. So it's going to widen that particular horizon, right? So they have to look at how are they able to really add value to the organization, because non-technical roles are the first one to be picked up whenever there's a matter of cost. And people also have to be open to the compensation that they expect in the market. While the market has been surging in the last couple of years, but I think it's getting course corrected now, because we cannot really expect market to keep giving you a hike of 50%, 60%, 100% continuously year on year, right? Because that's a time when people look at profitability and sustainability, and also with respect offshoring from other countries, right? So we have to be at a competitive market. Otherwise, we'll definitely lose the opportunity to other countries like Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, or China, who are also improving in that particular talent and are coming at a competitive pricing.
Absolutely, I mean, absolutely. I think we couldn't agree more. What we're hearing from you is, especially non-ID skill sets, not just look at transactional work within your role, but look at how it aligns from a tactical execution and how it aligns to the strategic vision of the company, right? So me as an individual contributor, as a team within my function, how it aligns to the overarching business goals. I think that's a clear message, right? So I think that calls in for a lot of upskilling, reskilling, the recognition of what one might need to do, and I think what you just said, I echo what you said from a technical skill standpoint. I think data, your ability to continuously stay relevant, right? Visibly, again, all aligned to adding significant outcomes to the business, right? So interesting. Navin, with specific reference to Affine, what might be those top 3 or 5 things that you might look at in any candidate for those who are considering an employment opportunity at Affine?
So we definitely look at the readiness to pick up new learnings, new skills. So we look at a certain core competency that is required from a technical perspective. That is one aspect. But the main aspect that we look at is how will they adapt? What is the kind of problem-solving mindset that they come with? That we do not expect people to be 100% perfect when they come in, but we want people who are open to learning, open to adapt, people who have good communication skills, people who are confident, who are willing to take up roles that are client-facing, roles that are probably requiring to collaborate with people, and especially in the new post-pandemic era. And we have a work from anywhere policy right now in effect, right? So that way it becomes very, very important. How are we able to collaborate and communicate, right? It's not just one-way communication. It's about collaborating, communicating in a very different world. To just give you an example, a recruiter facing challenges and getting maybe an interview slot, right? Then I have to tell them saying that there are different ways in which you have to reach out to a particular panel, engage with them. Do not look at them as just a stakeholder, but figure out what works for them. Maybe a particular slot that you would prefer in the morning or evening, right? So figure out what do you need to do. Pick up phone, talk to them. Do not just communicate over email and wait for them to respond, right? Not everyone probably be prompt in responding to an email. Probably try to chat over a team, maybe give them a call over phone. So I think that kind of collaboration, for anyone is very, very important, right? So it's not just people will work on an email, right? So I think that's something which we are looking at, people collaborating, and sometimes also we look at people collaborating coordinating with our on-site team, right, which are in a slightly different time zone. So I think that's going to be very, very key. How do we adapt to it, be flexible enough, take ownership and accountability of the work that has been assigned? I think that is something that we look at, and not looking at micromanaging some people, right? So that's not our idea. We would definitely would want people to be, I would say, self-dependent, being able to self-motivate, being able to work through different challenges that you would come across. I think that's the kind of talent that we're looking at. And then we also have a lot of opportunities for people to learn new technologies, right? So we have online classes for them. We have mentors that we provide to a particular person the moment they're on. So we do that hand holding for quite some time to ensure that people are able to really settle down the organization and adapting to its culture. So we have very flexible culture, very young culture, very diverse workforce with respect to technology. And I think that's something that we have really focused in the last 1 year or so, right? And that's helped us in also improving our overall, scores in Glassdoor and other websites. So I think that's going to be our focus even for the coming year.
So just a follow-up question to that, Naveen. What we used to understand is, in your expert opinion or advice, what advice would you render out to probable candidates before they come in for an interview? What are the top few things that you think they might need to do or they need to do in order for them to have successful outcomes in interviews?
Yeah, so one is definitely understanding the job description, because the job description will call out the different skill sets that they need to be proficient with. I think they'll have to brush up on those technologies, be prepared for those kind of questions that'll come their way, be open to the technical assessments that we have in place, for some people at junior level. So I think they'll have to probably do their best in those particular rounds, and then also study about the organization and be ready with the response, how they'll be able to add value. So that's something that we look at in terms of learning, in terms of skills, in terms of their approach towards their career. I think that's something going to be very important that we will look at, how they'll be able to manage that. So we focus on technical aspect in the first round. I think that's something that they will have to really do well in, and followed by this next round would be more of managerial round, where we focus on how a person is thinking, how will be able to handle a particular situation if it's put into front of a particular client or a particular project. How will the person go about approaching that particular problem? So I think that's something that we will really look at. So we give them case study approaches that helps us in figuring out whether the person will be able to manage something on his own or requires some amount of grooming, hand holding when a person joins. So I think the candidate will have to definitely look at that particular aspect in terms of technologies that they are proficient in, or the areas where they themselves think they require some kind of a grooming, right? I think being open, transparent about that during the conversation will definitely help. Then just trying to showcase that they are really good, but when you start getting technical into the interview discussion, that's when they get exposed. I think being transparent about it and sharing the areas where they want to really develop in the coming months, I think that will be key to us.
So I think if I can take out what you're saying, it all begins with the candidate themselves having a very sharp sense of what the job description really is, right? What is expected of them. To that extent, I would maybe even suggest that probably it might help for them to, even if the job description is not clear, probably find out who the recruiter is, engage in a conversation even before the interview, and get a sense of what's really called out. Help them understand what the job description is, understand the context. I think that's what I'm hearing from you, Naveen, right? Just helps them to be able to show this. Right. Wonderful, wonderful. Naveen, in keeping with the theme of trends and the impact of the pandemic, what were the most important lessons of the pandemic for HR and business leaders, especially in adaptability, innovation, and diversity and inclusion? And how do you see these changing going forward now that we are in a post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I think everything will revolve around the business, right? So we'll have to probably look at business and not pick up something for the sake of picking up and working on that area, right? So everything will have to revolve around business in terms of ensuring that business is growing, being profitable. We'll have to look at what is business first, right? We'll have to look at what is customer first. I think these are the few things that we will have to look at, and especially working in the kind of technologies, right? The kind of pool that is available, right? We will look at diversity in terms of not just gender, but diversity in terms of where they come from, the kind of skills that they work on, the kind of fungibility that they can provide with respect to their own skill set. And I think that is something which will help in sustaining business, in helping them and getting multiple projects to work on, right? I think those are going to be some of the areas. The other learnings has been is being able to ensure that we do a fair assessment of the candidate, right? Because sometimes there are even areas where there are certain fake candidates which might probably come to system. So we figure out how do we ensure that we're getting the right candidates in the system, we're doing the right assessment, how do we improve our turnaround time, how are we able to provide good candidate experience right from the starting, and also we have ensured that we are being more responsive to the candidates, because the channel of communications are quite wide right now. Email, it is on LinkedIn, or it can be on system, it can be on WhatsApp. So we have kept the channel of communication quite important, and I personally at my level also ensure that we are responding back to the candidates over email. They might apply on career page, on LinkedIn, or multiple other forums, to ensure that we are responding back to them, whatever it is. Being candid about it, something matching, not matching, we want to definitely respond back to them and ensure ensure that they are staying engaged with the organization. I think that's going to be key for all the organizations, keeping the current competitiveness in the market, right? For the talent and pool, that's going to be very, very important for Affine as well.
So in fact, you're right. So I think something that we also attempt to do is to how do you enhance the candidate experience really, right? And keep them active because as we speak, the candidate probably potentially speaking to a couple of other companies competing in the similar realm as you are, right? So while these are hygiene, but it can certainly be a competitive advantage to you if done right, right? If companies care about it. So candidate as consumers, right? I think you would look at candidates as consumers in terms of where you are.
Right, and definitely, we have to take candidates differently, independently, because not all candidates have the same expectations when they're looking out for opportunity, right? So I think that is the difference that I ask my team to bring in, right? Don't view them a candidate as a candidate, right? They are each different humans, different individuals, right? With different aspirations, different expectations. We get candidates with someone who's interested for work from home and hence looking at Affine, someone looking at Affine's growth, career opportunities, the kind of skill that we work on. They want to work on those kind of skill sets, right? So we get different kind of expectations from the candidate. So look at what is that they're expecting and give them information with respect to that, right? Someone wants to know more about the kind of client that we work with, the kind of project that we work on. So share more of information on that, ensuring that we are continuously keeping them engaged from time to time, even though that they have accepted offers from our end. We ensure that we have a pre-joining buddy assigned to them, so that if they want to interact with someone at a peer level, figure out what kind of project they're working on, and getting more information about a particular organization experience that the employee is having, right? I think they get a good exposure to that. So I think that is what I would recommend to anyone, ensuring that the candidates are also treated as potential employees, right? And even if they join or not join, we always leave them with a positive experience so that they explore or find as the next organization in future sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think how do you build your candidate pipeline? I think it was a very interesting aspect that you touched upon, Navin, which is, how do you, look at even after an offer is accepted, how do you continue to engage with the candidate? What do you do? Because oftentimes companies seem to be complacent there. And that's where I think a lot of HR and TS pet peeve is about offer dropouts, right? I think that also seems to be a major theme, and businesses, TA leadership are all peevish about it, witnessing increasing offer dropouts, right? But continuously engaging with them even after that stage, and assigning up, a buddy that you said that, person that somebody could talk to and sound off. I think it just helps. I think couldn't agree more, Naveen.
Yeah. So we have a dedicated team who takes care of engaging with the candidate, because what happens with the recruiter, they have so much on their plate and so many things to juggle with, right? While they also engage with the candidates, we have a dedicated team who engages with the talent. Sure. And they kind of are responsible for, anything that comes from the candidate side, sending out emails, helping them with the documentation process, connecting them with the project leads as and when required, and giving us the early warning signal in case someone seems disengaged, and then we again try to figure out what exactly is going wrong somewhere, or probably someone has got maybe a even better offer, right? And then we ensure that we can do something in that perspective. If we can give a counter offer, or we ensure that the candidate is, getting a positive experience from our end, and even if it's declining, choosing to decline for any other reason, we ensure that we thank them for considering Affine as one of the opportunities there, and then we kind of ensure that they refer, either their immediate colleagues or friends, for Affine. So that's the touch that we leave them.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Naveen, also in keeping with the theme of diversity and inclusion, so how does multi-generational workforce and technology form a part of inclusivity and diversity? I mean, across industries, but with specific reference to maybe IT services, IT technology, or what your views on that?
So I think that it's got a multiple generations, right, working together recently, and they have all different expectations, different aspirations, right? So we have to ensure how do we blend that, and the leadership has to be aligned with the kind of workforce that we have, the kind of expectation that they have, right? I would say that when I had started working during my career, people used to look at stability as one of the key factors, and people used to choose brands, over a smaller brand. But I think that's something which has changed, rapidly right now. So people are no more worried about person spending 5 years, 10 years with the organization as an ideal fit, right? They look at what the person can bring at it on the table, right? So that's something that's really changed with respect to diversity. People have become more open about employee expectations, employee aspiration that they want, keeping them trained, looking at providing them flexibility, work-life balance. I think that brings different kind of workforce together, right? I think that's become very, very key for us also. And we've been very adaptable, very open to our employees. We also have our open house in the town halls that we have every month. So that's where we hear to our employees what they have to say, the feedback that they have to share, right? And I think that's where we have been quite adaptive, bringing in different kind of people there. We also have bring in women who want to return from career break. How do we bring them in? People who are freshers or people who are semi-trained, they're looking at building their career in data space, right? So we see how do we bring in that kind of a talent also into the organization, or people who want to move into data science, right? They've done certain courses or they have finished their graduation, right? How do we bring them into our fold? So we're looking at how do we bring in this diverse talent from different locations, from different industry background in the past. That's why we're trying to build a diverse workforce, keep them engaged, through different connects with the leadership team, and being quite ensuring that they're vocal about their aspiration. That's where we are able to bring in that difference. For example, even work from anywhere was one of the requests from our employees. Right, we had thought about opening our offices and bringing people back to office, but we did a VOC with our employees, and we figured out that people are more motivated and they would want to work from home, and they're able to contribute to the organization. I think that was a big game changer for us, and we were able to really sustain our workforce and keep them engaged at the same time attract more talent.
Sure. Sure. So, Naveen, if you were to do a kind of a crystal ball glaze, I mean, not too much into the future, but just looking at 2023 as it unfolds, right? So, what do you think are the top 5 or 3 or 5 HR trends for 2023? And what are the critical preparations that you think the organizations might have to do given these trends in context of these trends?
Yeah, I think one is they'll have to be open to the employee experience, right? Because given that people are working hybrid model or being asked to come to office or working from anywhere, I think the key would be listening to employees, right? Just doing a particular survey may not give the best of the results, right? Until and unless some people are connecting with the employees to figure out why are they leaving the organization or if they are disengaged anywhere. Because I think that's going to be very very important. Because once the employees are happy, they automatically they're productive, they're contributing to an organization. So I think that is something that they'll have to clearly look at. While they are being flexible, providing work from anywhere or different benefits to the employee, but I think they'll have to really figure out what is that is going to be very very important for those employees, right? So they'll have to be fungible with the kind of offering that they are providing, because not one thing would suit everyone, right? So they'll have to really look at employee experience to ensure that the churnout is less, because I think last couple of years we have seen a lot of churnout during pandemic, almost close to 30 to 40% in the entire industry, right? I think that's something they have to look at, how they can sustain, what are the reasons why employees are looking on. I think that's going to be the most key factor. And second, I think would be definitely with respect to the learning methodology, right? There are times when employers they look at what is that they would want to train the employees on, but I think they'll also have to look at the areas where the employees want to be trained in, right? They have probably have certain aspirations, certain skills that they would want to pick up. So I think they'll have to probably give them a buffet of different skills that they would want to upskill themselves on. So that is gonna keep them relevant, plus at the same time help them with the career aspirations, right? And I think the other trend that could definitely be a game changer was the moonlighting, because that is where people organizations have to be open towards moonlighting, allowing employees to have that flexibility in terms of working with maybe as a consultant to other organizations that they can do. Plus, they can also open up a platform within the organization itself. In case someone wants to do maybe work on additional project, how they can enable that within the organization, so they don't have to look at outside, and then obviously aptly reward them for additional work that they do on additional project, right? So that will also be a win-win for both, right? Because employee ends up making some extra buck at the same time. You're able to deliver more projects within the organization from the same employee. I think that's going to be another area where companies should look at, right? Rather than losing out the talent, they can utilize the same talent for multiple projects within the organization, and then again ensure that they are suitably rewarded for those efforts. So I think these are the three things that are going to be key.
No, absolutely, Naveen. I think once again you touched upon a topic that's very hotly contested today, which is moonlighting. I think there is a certain confusion, if you will, around this. We've seen divided opinions and people contesting for, against, all of those. I'm not certain if the community at large really, has a very consistent view or understanding of what moonlighting is, or even the relevance of it, more importantly, right? So if I could just get your view on what you make of this moonlighting. And I don't think moonlighting is a phenomenon which is very recent. I think it's been there for ever since, right? I mean, there are typical human beings, wakers, right? Professional wakers. I mean, you would commit about 8 hours, 9 hours, but after that, you pretty much have the whole time in what you would like to do. Of course, that is, I mean, there's again the whole new debate about, am I working my passion or am I doing a job? And actually, in my non-job hours, am I doing something that's in line with my passion also, right? But I think from a moonlighting standpoint, I mean, if I could just understand from you on your understanding of what this is and the relevance of this.
In my view, I think moonlighting is fair in case someone wants to earn extra buck, contribute somewhere else apart from their work that they're doing, right? I think that is acceptable and that is fair, right? But what is unfair to me was as someone taking up 3 to 4 full employment jobs, where they're committing to a company that they would work full time with them, right? And then taking up 2 or more offers. I think that is something that's unethical unless it's already declared with the company and all the companies are aware that this person is working with 2 3 different companies, but that's going to be very rare. So I think that somewhere it is not ethical, because if I'm committing 8 hours to a particular company, then I have 3 offers, right? So 8 3 24 hours. Will I be able to really spend 24 hours with each of the companies? I don't think that's going to happen. But rather I would be open, where the companies are saying that maybe you work for 4 hours for me, part-time employment, and then he picks up similar kind of gigs from different companies and working for 2 3 different projects, maybe spending 10 to 12 hours a day. That still seems okay. But I think where you promise a person that you're going to be full-time employed with them, and then you're working with other organizations in parallel, and maybe also misusing some of the resources resources that you are being given by one company for your personal gigs. I think that is something which definitely not ethical in nature. But apart from that, if someone wants to maybe do a consulting work, freelancing work for a small project, earn that extra money, enhance their skills, I think that is still acceptable.
With specific reference to Affine, Naveen, do you all encourage moonlighting? If you do, in what context do you do that? Or you have a view
Right.
for?
No, so right now I'm not exposed to if there are any moonlighting thing, but we have not come across as a policy saying that if you found someone or proactively telling people that moonlighting not allowed. So I think we focus more on what is that they're contributing to our organization and delivery to the project. As long as they're contributing and that is happening, we have not gone beyond that to figure out is someone moonlighting or not moonlighting. We have trust on our employees that they will not do anything which is detrimental to organization. And apart from that, if they're doing any freelancing or any small gigs, I think that is absolutely fine.
Wonderful, Naveen. Thank you so much. I think we are at the close of our 15-minute capsule. We thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. A lot of insight from you, very specific to the industry, some that will help the larger HR community understand, where the trend is headed and so on. We would have loved to have this conversation continue, maybe do a subsequent round in the series, but I know you're pressed for time. Thank you so much, Naveen, for joining us. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. We look forward to engaging with you in the future as well.
Thank you so much, Vinu. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it was really nice talking to you and sharing my views. Hopefully, it will helpful the larger HR community as well.
Indeed, it surely will. And have a joyous day, Naveen. Thank you so much.